What's up, guys? You're watching the NFL Wildcard Round edition of PlayerPool. We're looking at the Saturday two-game slate, and it should be a pretty fun slate. We've been crushing on these two-game slates lately, and I'm going to get into it right after this.
Our viewers and subscribers are crushing it thanks to SportNuggets.com's premium content. On our live show Game Script, we've built multiple showdown-winning lineups recently, delivering thousands in winnings straight to our viewers. Shout out to Basie Babe, Mosh8124, TC2480, and Wizard Gangsta for cashing big using our recommended plays. Our premium members have taken it to the next level, absolutely dominating leaderboards with our exclusive core plays and insights. Our own PumaCom smashed Week 17's weekend slates, banking over $79,000 in contest winnings. Shout out to premium Discord member Sick Hemi for winning over $2,000 using our core plays. This success comes from our unique narrative-driven game script projections and curated news aggregation, tools designed to streamline your research, uncover hidden gems, and give you the edge in fantasy and betting contests. Join the winners today. Sign up for premium access at sportnuggets.com and start building your own massive paydays.
What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at PumaCom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching PlayerPool. Looking at the Saturday two-game slate for the playoffs, the wild card round starts on Saturday. Got a couple interesting games here to break down. Before I do that, make sure to hit that like button, get me to 70 likes so I can tell you guys the better game to focus on when we get to Saturday. We do have some weather potentially interfering with us in our selection this week and the best plays on the slate. I got an idea of the game that I want to target right now, but I'm not sure if that's going to stick on the time we get to Saturday. I don't like having these weather interferences when we're doing these two-game slates. They can be a little bit fickle. We got lucky last week because I was very high on that Carolina-Tampa Bay game, and that ended up being a torrential downpour. But I still liked it, even knowing that those conditions were coming with that other game being San Francisco versus the Seahawks, who I thought the Seahawks would just absolutely stomp San Francisco. That ended up happening. And I thought that the score would be, well, I guess they didn't stomp them, but like I was guessing that the score would be really low and that Seattle's defense would just be able to handle Brock Purdy and keep that score in check when I think 35% of the field was on Brock Purdy against Seattle's defense, which to me was crazy. We went with Bryce Young. He ended up being the highest scoring quarterback on the slate, and that targeting that Tampa-Carolina game could have been huge for us, except the weather over there, the torrential downpour, ended up making that a low-scoring game too, but higher scoring than the first game, so it ended up working out anyways. But we'll figure out how to handle this slate with two games that we're looking at for the first round of the wild cards. So, or first round of the playoffs, the wild card round. So also make sure to subscribe over at sportnuggets.com. We got a premium OG subscription available right now. It's going to be available until about the first round, probably the first game of Saturday. Like we'll probably end it at the first game of Saturday, just because we've gotten enough subscribers with it. We don't need to run it that much longer. It's going to be a discount for the life of the subscription, so we don't want to lock in too many of those because it's too good of a discount, and we're going to regret it a couple years from now. But not going to regret having the members that we had subscribe to it. And we're having an active Discord. Premium Discord is where all the content is being posted right now. So if you sign up, or if you have signed up and you haven't gotten in that premium Discord, make sure to get in there, because that's where all the articles and the premium videos are being posted while we're waiting for that to get set up on the website, which should be very soon. So we shouldn't have to be find the premium content. So make sure to get it. And if you want to get in the free Discord, you get in the free Discord as well. There's a lot of good discussions going on in the free Discord as well. So make sure to go and check it out. We got Spread a Stare joined us the other day. Spread a Stare is going to be helping out with content on the site. You've seen him on the show before, and he does a great job breaking down NFL games and NBA games. And he's a multi-sport guy, and he does a really good job with giving betting and prop advice, and as well as DFS. So get into the Discord, come say hello, and hopefully if you're in there, you end up coming over to the premium side, but definitely take advantage of that OG subscription while you still can. All right, guys. So I'm going to get into the slate here. We're looking at the Carolina Panthers versus the Los Angeles Rams. That's going to be the first game. And this is a 46.5 point total. We got Rams as massive 10.5 point favorites in this one. The last game that these two teams played, we ended up seeing an upset with Carolina pulling off the upset and winning against the Rams. We can take a look real quick, actually, at that box score. So this game was interesting. Everybody was expecting the Rams to win, obviously. We had Adams actually in that game along with Puka. So we had the whole team healthy. And you can kind of see Stafford, middling game, only 15 DraftKings points in that one. That's got to be a disappointment relative to where he was that week. Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, neither of those guys had a superstar game. We saw Adams with the most points. He had 21 that week. Puka Nacua, only 13 points, so they had Puka Nacua in check. And Xavier Smith was the other guy that did anything noteworthy. That would be a good score, really good score on a showdown slate for Xavier Smith. So Xavier Smith would have gotten you some wins in that showdown contest. And then on the other side, we had Bryce Young and Chuba Hubbard ended up having the big game for the running backs in that one. And to be honest, Rico Dowdle has not been very special recently. So Chuba Hubbard might start winning more touches. And we're looking at that. He ended up scoring a receiving touchdown. Let's see who else. Jalen Coker had a decent game in that one with 17 DraftKings points. Tet McMillan only 11 in that game. And that's about it. And Bryce Young, of course, had that 22 DraftKings points. So Bryce Young obviously had the higher score in that, which lines up with what quarterbacks have been scoring against the Rams anyways. They've been scoring about 18 DraftKings points a game. And if we're looking at Bryce Young, they're going to have to be aggressive probably. They're going to be expecting the Rams to be aggressive in this one. And we got an offensive-minded coach on that team. So, they're probably going to have to be forced into being aggressive because it's Bryce Young and you can't really know what you're going to get. We've seen him recently, a couple 17-point weeks. He's at 5K, 15-point week against Carolina. That Rams game, he scored 22 in, and then he had one other big game against the Falcons for 34 DraftKings points. But, other than this 26-point week 2, we haven't really seen him crack that 20 DraftKings point mark. So very difficult to go with Bryce Young on this particular slate. Like last week, I could make a case for him against Tampa, but this week I'm not so sure I would be able to make another case for him. But we'll check it out when we're building these lines. He does have the best matchup on the slate with that 18.2. Well, slightly lower than what Green Bay's matchup is. Chicago's allowing 18.9. So he's in play, but I don't like him the same way that I liked him last week. Because last week made a whole lot of sense with everybody piling into that San Francisco game. And we wanted to go with the stacking the other game. And the cheapest way to do that was to go the Bryce Young route. And all the good stacking partners that we were stacking with Bryce Young ended up being worthless anyways, because the guys that ended up scoring the big games in that one was Tommy Tremble and frickin' Cade Otton. So, we can't really win when the scrubbier options on the slate are the ones that scores all the points. They did have good matchups, so we can't put blinders on to the matchups of these tight ends. But considering that tight end matchup last week, where Otton ended up being the highest scoring guy in the slate pretty much, we can look over at the Rams and see some of their tight ends. I'll look over there next. We're looking at Colby Parkinson. Tyler Higbee is healthy. Terrence Ferguson, he's questionable. I think he's got a knee issue we want to keep an eye on. And he missed week 18. But he's been good for us when we've needed. Been service. And he actually won. What did he win for us the other week? He won the he was the underdog heat seeker of the week, and he ended up scoring the touchdown for us. Let's see. And then other than that, he was pretty good on, I want to say, on a showdown slate. But yeah, that Atlanta showdown slate, he ended up scoring a touchdown. So I can't remember what the circumstances were there. Let's see. But that's about it. Davis Allen has been getting decent routes, but he's not getting any targets or points, so it's tough to go there, especially with Higbee back. I imagine it's going to be Parkinson, Higbee, and Ferguson, but we'll check and see what those routes are real quick. Let's see. Let me call up that Fantasy Pro site that I like to use. Let's see. Just got to find it real quick. Thought I had it up already. All right. Let's see. So I'm going to take you guys real quick over to Fantasy Pros. We're going to look over at tight ends and sort it by team. And going down to the Rams, we see Parkinson last week was at an 84% snap count. So they used a lot of multi-tight ends sets last week. Davis Allen 61 or 71%, and Higbee in his first week back, by the way, Higbee had 64% snap count. So Ferguson was benched or hurt last week, so he had 0 snaps. But I don't know how this is going to shake out with Ferguson back, because it looks like he was getting a little more than Davis Allen. So it might be either a 1-for-1 replacement for Higbee, like Higbee comes back and Ferguson is more of a bench guy, or Davis Allen is more of a bench guy. I'm not sure which one of these guys is going to get hurt from Higbee being back, because we didn't have Ferguson in the mix last week. But if we go to see Higbee, you can see he had 20 DraftKings points last week, his first week back. And if Carolina is going to be defending Devontae Adams pretty well on his first week back, especially in the end zone, the big bodies of these tight ends are going to be the targets for Matthew Stafford. And that's going to set up Tyler Higbee or potentially Colby Parkinson or Ferguson or a guy like that to score a touchdown in the game. Tyler Higbee would be my favorite choice, because they are going to go to the veteran, the guy that Stafford's most comfortable with. Although Stanford's been pretty comfortable with all of them recently, but they're going to probably go back to Higbee. Higbee should benefit in this if they use the 3 tight end sets. I can't remember when they implemented it. They hadn't been using it all season, but when they started implementing those 3 tight end sets and they realized that it was working, I think it was right before the bye. And he had three weeks in it, probably had 4 targets, 3 targets, and 2 targets. Let's check out after the bye what these other guys had. Parkinson had, after the bye, 2 targets, 5 targets, 2 targets, 4 targets. Parkinson's been really good. He got like 19.6 DraftKings points last week too. So both these guys ended up going off, Parkinson and Higbee. What did Allen do? Allen didn't get any targets, and Ferguson was benched, obviously, or not necessarily benched, but he was hurt. So Higbee and Parkinson are going to be interesting this week. Let me check and see what the ownership projection is on these tight ends. Yeah, because the reason I look at these guys is because there was a reason we were targeting, or that I noticed that the matchup was good for Otten, and I just didn't trust that he was going to get the usage last week, but he ended up crushing it. We're looking at like only 15% for Higbee, but he is the second highest owned guy on the slate. and Parkinson is looking at like 9%. So, either of those guys, this is pretty safe with ownership. You don't really have to worry about ownership with those guys, but pretty good matchup for these tight ends this week, with the Panthers giving up 12.2 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position. Not as good for Tommy Tremble, because the Panthers are only giving up 8.5 DraftKings points. So not as high in Tommy Tremble, but he ended up scoring a touchdown too, which would have been great on that 2-game slate if you went with, Tremble or Otten in that tight end spot. Let's see. Or at least in the cheap flex spot. So Matthew Stafford, last week, 26.7 with Devontae back. That was the first, he's been pretty consistent even without Adam, but that was the first week without Adam, or first week. No, forget I said that. I was thinking for a second Adams being back. 26.7 against Arizona, 15.8 against the Falcons. The lowest game that he had recently is pretty much that game against Carolina, where he had that 14.6 DraftKings points. So Carolina in general has been a more of a run funnel offense or defense. They've been giving up only 13.4 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. I think a lot of people might default to Matthew Stafford this week for their quarterback, which, if the weather is going to be really bad in Chicago, as far as the wind, that might not be a bad idea. There's going to be about 40% ownership on Matthew Stafford, though. If they end up going run heavy in this one, I mean, that would be a great pivot off of Matthew Stafford this week. And, maybe go towards those tight ends instead of Adams, assuming that the Rams, are handling this game. They decide not to push Adams too much in it. Maybe it's just, get him warmed up for next week. If they end up winning the game, and then guy like Adams would get, less of those contested catches in the end zone, and they go more towards those tight ends. But that's kind of how I'm thinking of this game. I'm expecting the Rams to be able to handle it. They got a rain situation too, as you can see on this DraftKings graphic. Let me check and see what let's see. Oh, sorry guys, I need to share the screen. As you can see on the DraftKings graphic. So let me check and see what the Roto Grinders report is here on the rain real quick. So Kevin Roth has Rams versus Carolina. Pretty good shot of rain here, though, as always, we won't really know until closer to kickoff. Winds 10 to 15 miles an hour sustained. Gusts around 20 miles an hour. The gusts are what we would be concerned about here. With Green Bay and Chicago, a few snow showers or flurries are possible. I'm concerned with the wind likely coming in a bit over 15 miles an hour sustained. If we get too high, over 15 miles an hour sustained, that's not good for passing games or kicking games, honestly, mainly for kicking games. Gusts averaging over 30 miles an hour. That's something that we'd have to be concerned about. They are playing in the windy city of Chicago. Late game wind gusts could be over 35 miles an hour or higher. If we didn't have these wind and weather concerns, like this Green Bay Chicago game would be a no-brainer for me to pivot to this week. But those wind is going to be, what keeps it cautious for me. So we got to really monitor this weather heading into the game on Saturday to kind of figure out how we're going to play this slate. And then, this is why I don't put out the shows too early, because there's so many variables that can change, like the thinking on a slate. So we don't want to waste our time with preparing for it one way and then have one of those variables go against us, and then we're scrambling to figure out a new approach on the slate. So interesting situation there with the weather. We got to keep an eye on it and make sure that we're not not going to pick the wrong game here. but they both do have weather concerns. So that's at least going for us. One being rain. Bryce Young, you can't imagine his hands are that big. But he did handle himself in a torrential downpour last week. I say the hands big because, like, if these guys with small hands are playing in rain, the ball slips a lot. You saw that with Baker a couple times in the game last week. We've seen that with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy just absolutely got destroyed in a rain game a couple years ago, and just could not hang on to the ball. He was dropping it all over the field, and the big thing that came out after that was his hands were really small or something like that. So, I'm guessing that Bryce Young, based on his size, has pretty small hands, but it didn't impact him too badly last week because he ended up being the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. So something to keep in mind there. If we're looking at running backs, the Rams have probably the best run advantage on the slate. The Panthers have been giving up 28.7 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. And I think the running back position would be a great pivot off of the passing game here. If the situation works out in our favor where we want to target that second game, this would be a great game to kind of target these running backs. Now, Kyren Williams is going to be high with his ownership at around 64%. Blake Corum, I can't believe that I'm seeing that he's about 5% right now, 5% projected. I think that if the Rams game script plays out as it should, there's going to be an even split of carries between Corum and Williams. Corum would be an easy pivot, knowing that it's 50% of the snap count against a really bad run defense. And if Corum, ends up scoring a few points more than Kyren Williams, that could be all we need to have the advantage on the slate at the running back position. So I do like Corum a lot this week. And let's see, last week, didn't get a whole bunch of points last week. He's had a few decent games, but he hasn't really had that breakout game. He had 128 yards. Well, I guess that's a breakout game. That's 29 points he scored against Arizona. That was back in week 14. And then he's pretty much had 50% of the workload since then. I think Kyron's getting the high value touches. Kyron, but he's been kind of middling too these last few weeks with this split. So that's another thing. 67% for a middling Kyren Williams, when I can pay less money for Blake Corum, who will likely get, at least close to the amount of touches that Kyron's getting and has the potential to outscore him. Let's check out and see what these running back snaps look like. All right, going to the Rams here. Looking at the Rams, Corum was at last week 33% versus 63 for Williams. Week before that, 71 to 25, 71 to 29. Kyron's used more in the passing game. Let's see. All right, Rams RBs. Let's see here. All right, so according to Rich Rebar, he did a little breakdown of these running back touches recently. Kyren Williams has had 197 touches for 1,047 yards and 9 touchdowns over the last 12 games of the season. Go check out Rich Rebar, Sharp Football Analysis. He does a good articles breaking down each of these games. Blake Corum handled 126 touches, so about 37% for 640 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, it's been a bit of an edge towards Kyren Williams, but we could easily see, like a break, like a Blake Corum week here. And I don't mind going to Blake Corum in this matchup. Let's see, Chuba Hubbard. The Rams have not been that great against run either. They're giving up 27.7 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So that's going to set up Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle to have decent games. We saw 20.4 DraftKings points out of Chuba Hubbard in the last game against the Rams, and that's really the best game of the season for Chuba Hubbard, and one of the only good games of the season for Chuba Hubbard. With Rico Dowdle, he hasn't been very special lately. He hasn't had a decent game since week 9. And we can check out real quick at these guys' snap counts. Going to go to Carolina, and we see 45% for Hubbard, 53% for Dowdle. So, it's pretty even split there as well. These guys won't have the same draw on ownership as we saw with these Rams running backs, or at least with Kyron Williams. Let me check and see if I can see real quick what the ownership is looking like. Let's see. Ownership on these guys are looking at about 41% for Dowdle. So Dowdle is going to be the popular one. I mean, 4, 9, 8, 12 in the last 4 weeks versus Chuba Hubbard, who's 4, 4, 4, 4 over the last 4 weeks. So, I mean, neither has been very good, but, either one could be in play if you want to go in that direction against a bad Rams run D. Let's see what Dowdle's did against that Rams game. He only had 9.9 DraftKings points. But don't rule these guys out, because that's where these big games come from when we sign these guys off, because they've had some bad games recently. So don't rule out Corum, and don't rule out Hubbard, and don't rule out Dowdle in these matchups this week. So wide receiver, we got Puka Nacua, obviously the top target on the slate. A couple weeks in a row, or at least in the last 5 games, we've had some monster performances out of him. Just week one with that 15.7 DraftKings points. He did have prior to that streak of awesome games, he had that 13-point game against Carolina. So most of these are without Adams. We get Adams back this week. Devontae Adams, last game was week 15. So week 15 is where we saw 30 DraftKings points, 40.5, and 26 out of Puka. Prior to that, he's still perfectly capable of putting up a big game, but you see a lot less of those. That string of 30-point games when you go into this territory, and that's probably about where those 3 tight end sets started happening, because you started to see Puka Nacua's usage go down. So let's go over to Fantasy Pros, and we'll see exactly where that started happening. So we can see a noticeable dump in. We should be able to see a noticeable dump in Puka Nacua's usage when they started those 3 tight end sets, because he was kind of weirdly the odd man out. So 63, 69, 91, 90, 81, 93. Then you see that dip, right where I told you guys, right before the bye week, to 51%. 0%, I guess he was hurt in that one. Then he goes to 49%, 52%, 67%. And then Adams gets hurt. Actually, he had a couple big weeks before Adams got hurt. Adams got hurt in week 15, but he went down to 44 and 56 again. And then he went up to 78, 74, 69. So these weeks where he's at 56, 44, 52, 49, 51, those are weeks where they're using 3 tight end sets. And they stumbled into that. I think they stumbled into those 3 tight end sets when Puka got hurt earlier in the year for week 7. So they probably, I think week 7 they did it, and something that they did there they liked and they ended up continuing to use it even with Nacua healthy. And you used it right up until Davante Adams got hurt. So we don't know if we're going to get like the 52 snap count Puka that we saw in 9, 10, 11, all these weeks here. So week 6 through 11, we want to take a look at here in DraftKings, see what points 6 through 11, 4.8, 22.8, 17.4, 15.3. You see how he's impacted when he's getting like a much smaller snap count. I don't think we need to build a case against him or a case for fading him, but I mean, we can build a case for not needing 100% of them with the way that this shakes out. We got a matchup here against Carolina where it's a run funnel defense. The wide receivers have been scoring 19.3 DraftKings points a game versus the Carolina defense. He's in the slot. They've been getting up 12.2 DraftKings points, so they've been weaker versus the slot. So Puka Nacua is in the ideal spot to be against Carolina, but like a sub 20 DraftKings point game would not surprise me out of Puka Nacua. Davante Adams, last game against Carolina, he was the guy to go, the guy that we would have wanted as the receivers. He had 21.8 DraftKings points, and that could be the situation again this week. If we wanted to pivot off of Nacua, we could go with Adams and maybe throw in like Higbee or something like that if you wanted to use Stafford and double stack him. If you want to get different with those double stacks, seeing the 60% ownership or whatever it was on Stafford, that would be a good, or 40%, that would be a good pivot to, or a good differentiator to have a double stack with Adams and Higbee, or Adams and Parkinson or something like that. Ted McMillan, the Rams are giving up, 29.6 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. So still vulnerable against wideouts. Let's check out the defense though for the Rams real quick and see how their defense is looking as far as their injury report here. So I'm looking over at ESPN, their depth charts. That's how I kind of look and get a quick glance and see what the injury report's looking like. On the day of, I'll be monitoring closely on the Sport Nugget website for these updates to come in. Very useful checking that out and keeping a close eye on it, because it's a great way to just get your feed right in front of you with what's happening with these NFL injuries. And it's updated close to real time. We're trying to get it to real time, but it's going to be real time enough so that you guys have a good clue on what's going on. Kevin Dotson is out. Jordan Whittington is out as well. Haverstein is out on IR still. Keep an eye on that. I don't know when he's coming due to return though. But Dotson is out, the right guard. So that's a hit for that offensive line. Got a couple of their linebackers that are still on IR. Keir Thomas. And other than that, they're healthy in the secondary now. We got Witherspoon back. Quentin Lake is back. I don't see any injury designation on those guys. So looking very healthy in the secondary at least, but that offensive line, maybe another strike on Stafford there if we wanted to focus on a different direction this week. We'll check out the Panthers while we're here. So the Panthers looks relatively healthy on the offense, except we're missing Jatavian Sanders on IR. Let's see, few injuries, guys on IR on the defense as well, with a couple cornerbacks. Trevin Wallace, Patrick Jones, and Popo Amave are all on IR, but relatively healthy here for Carolina's defense. So nothing really to keep an eye on for that side. But Tet McMillan, he's facing off against defense that's given up a ton of yards. Let's see. What side of the field does he line up on? Let me check that real quick. I see him at 56% on the left side of the field. That's where he'll face off against. Get an idea of where he's primarily going to be lining up against. Let's see, the Rams. So if he's on the left side of the field for 56% of his snaps, he's going to be lining up against Darius Williams and Roger McCreary. So let me check and see something real quick. Let's see what kind of grade that we have for Darius Williams. Darius Williams' coverage grade is pretty high, so it's probably the better side of the cornerbacks that he has to face off against, but he should be able to get him on the other side enough. Maybe he gets that Emmanuel Forbes matchup a few times, but Tet McMillan should be interesting with all the points that the Rams give up to the to wideouts. So definitely gonna be having exposure to Tet McMillan. Coker, he's been pretty good in spots recently. He's at 17 DraftKings points in that last game versus Carolina. They are giving up just 8.5 to the slot. That's where he's primarily running his routes. So not as good a matchup for Coker. I think I like that Tet McMillan matchup the most, but he does run enough out wide so that maybe he gets that favorable matchup against the wideout, against the cornerbacks. Let me check and see. How much out left he gets? Only 11%. So right outside. I think right outside is the one that we want him, the matchup that we want. And right outside is going to be, against that weaker side of the Rams defense. So let's see, Coker against the right outside, 16% of the time. Leggett is option number 3. That might be actually lined up the most in that spot. Let's check out and see what the fantasy pros are telling us with these snap counts real quick. Let's see, snap counts for wide receivers. We want to look at Carolina. All right, so last week we had 31% snap count for Leggett, 88 for Tet McMillan, 14 for that dude. Jimmy Horn had the same snap count as Xavier Leggett. Jalen Coker at 92%. So the primary guys are going to be Coker and Tet McMillan, but Horn, let's see what Horn's at. Horn, we're looking at targets of 1, 2, 1. Nothing special there. Let's see, Leggett. I'm ready to give up on Leggett, but he's getting targets at least 4, 3, 3. That last game he had 2 targets. Let me see what kind of Leggett is running 38% of his routes against that good matchup. And Horn is at 16%. So, I mean, if you can stomach Leggett, like maybe he's a spot that you can go to. It's going to be hard to put Leggett in the lineup for me, but he does primarily line up in that good matchup, and he gets targets. So the opportunities are there, but Xavier Leggett could be interesting this week. Otherwise, Mumfield deserves a mention. Only one target last week in that Arizona game. They were probably back to those 3 tight end sets a lot last week, or I don't know what happened, because Mumfield, let's look at the snap counts there again. With Davante Adams back, these guys are going to be pretty much moot, but we can check this out to get an idea for showdown at the very least. So Nakua at 69, Atwell at 13, Xavier Smith at 33, Mumfield was at 48 despite not getting any targets. So, or only getting one target. So take that what you will with Mumfield and some of these scrubbier guys. Xavier Smith, though, has looked good. I told the Discord channel to keep a note on Xavier Smith because he did look good in that game against Atlanta a couple weeks ago. 6 targets in that game. He's had a couple double-digit point weeks. So Xavier Smith, maybe for showdown, a name to keep an eye on. But I do expect him to get much less work now that Davante Adams is back. All right, so we've broken down that game. Green Bay versus Chicago. We're looking at a 45.5 point total in this one. We got Chicago as Green Bay as 1.5 point favorites in Chicago. Potential weather situation, potential like flurries, depending on who you believe, versus snow. We're looking at, potential wind in this one. So we got the elements that we're going to be battling against. And we got Caleb Williams versus Jordan Love. And let's go and check out Williams' history against the Bears, or against the Packers. So I'm going to share over Pro Football Focus or Pro Football Reference. We're going to take a look and see how Caleb Williams has done. So we go to career game logs. We're going to sort the opponent and look at Green Bay here. So we've seen 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, 186 and 2 touchdowns, 148 and 1 touchdown, 230 yards and 0 touchdowns. So nothing impressive there. No rushing yards in that last game. 9 yards, 7 yards. Or wait a minute. 15 yards. 30 yards in that last game. 15 yards, 10 yards, 70 yards. He had 70 rushing yards in that first game he ever played against Green Bay to tag on to 230 passing yards. Didn't get any touchdowns in that game, but kind of shows you, like he can move against. He's been able to move against these Packers. And with the wind situation, maybe we see him scrambling a little bit more or taking off on his legs a little bit more. Let's check out Jordan Love. Now, we're talking about different defensive coordinator and all that, so take it with a grain of salt. But Jordan Love, history against Chicago. We'll look at recent history first, obviously. He got out with a concussion in that first game, or that second. Wait, what was that, first game or the second game? In the first game against them, he got out with a concussion for the rest of the the season, pretty much, or at least a few weeks. He missed a few weeks there with that concussion, and only had 77 yards passing before that happened. That's the game where Malik Willis came in and did really well and almost beat the Bears, but then they hit. I think they hit DJ Moore on that touchdown in overtime to win the game. 234 yards and 3 touchdowns, 69 yards. So he probably got hurt in that game as well. 261 and 1, 316 and 2, 245 and 3. Jordan Love has a nice history against this Bears defense. And if they come out aggressive and do well against this Bears defense and kind of force Chicago to be in catch-up mode, like this is what I'm talking about with this game. Because some of these scores recently, we got that 16. That game, could have been a lot higher if he played the whole game. 16-22, though. 28-21, 22-24, 20-19, low-scoring game there. And this one, this is all before. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like these ones would all be with Caleb Williams. And then we're looking at 17-9, 38-20 as well in there. So, I mean, he's had there's been some big scores between these two teams in recent history, which is why I'm tending to think that, this game could be the game that we want to target. If we can get like this, like a 25-21 type of score, or like higher than that, that's going to be more of a competitive game, which is more what I want to target. And that would put me on this game over that Rams versus Panthers game. So, third time these guys are meeting this year. This could go any way. It could be like a game where, Jordan Love is just on fire, and the Chicago Bears are going to have to be forced to answer to it. Or it could be one of those games where both teams are just trying to run the ball. Chicago's got a really good run defense, and the Packers' run game has not been very efficient all season. Chicago's only giving up 20.6 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. So, Jacobs is going to have a hard time in this. He had 5.8 DraftKings points the last time they faced off, and I believe he 17.2 in that other game. So 17.2 would be enough, a good chance to get us an optimal score in our lineups. But it's just kind of whatever direction that we want to go there with our game script, how we plan this game out. With Swift, the Packers have been much more vulnerable, giving up 25 DraftKings points a game on the ground. So Swift and Monangai have been pretty efficient, pretty good running back tandem, but they're not really putting up that much DraftKings points. You can see that with Monangai. Kind of tough to go to Monangai. See, this is where I like the running back matchups in that other game are so much better. And we've seen DeAndre Swift have a lot of nice games recently, actually, like a lot of 20-plus DraftKings point games for DeAndre Swift. So, Swift and Jacobs both in play, Monangai too. Odunze should be back this week. Let's check over on sportnuggets.com and see if we have anything recent on him. All right, so we're going to look over at Rome Odunze. We'll see what they say over at Sport Nuggets for recent news updates on Rome Odunze and his injury status. Expected to play after full practice participation. So good. We're getting full practices out of Rome Odunze on Thursday. Fully healthy after foot injury. Let's check and see what they say there. Full with no injury designation. So good news there for Rome Odunze. So he's back in play. That'll ding us a little bit on Luther Burden. Luther Burden, I've been a big fan of Luther Burden. I had him in captain in that showdown slate against San Francisco, where I won the 30K in that contest. And that was where he scored 30 DraftKings points. But he's been pretty good down the stretch here, and he's getting a decent target share. I think he was at like a 20 or 30% target share. Let me check and see real quick the actual matchup here. All right, I want to see the Green Bay Packers. Let's see. Packers. Let's see. So I want to see what kind of defense that they're primarily running. They're running zone coverage at a 9th highest rate. So Packers are a zone heavy team. So let's see what receivers benefit against zone. I'm looking at a premium site, so I can't share it. I see a 27% target share for Luther Burden in zone defense. That's higher than Rome Odunze, who's sub 20. Alameda Zacchaeus, sub 20. Not only that, but Burden is getting a 0.53 fantasy points per route run versus zone coverage. And that is almost double what the next highest guy is, and that would be Rome Odunze. But Rome Odunze has sub 20% target share versus zone coverage. But, very interesting there with Rome Odunze. All right, with Luther Burden. And, Luther Burden, let me get a look at what his ownership is. I don't know if the field has completely bought in on him yet. But he's probably my highest owned best ball guy, just because I went in pretty heavy with the Bears before like this weather concerns came out in playoff best ball. Let's see. Luther Burden, looking at only like a 30% ownership there. That puts him as the 5th highest. So, relatively high owned. Highest owned guy on the Bears for their wideouts. Rome Odunze is only at like 10%. So that's pretty interesting, actually. If we want to do those Caleb double stacks, that would put him in play for me too. DJ Moore, it just has dropped off a cliff this season, but he did have that game-winning touchdown against Green Bay in the last game that they played. He had 5 targets there. And the prior game, he had only 0.6 DraftKings points. So it shows you the ups and downs of DJ Moore this season. Christian Watson, let me check and see who the Bears might target this week. So if we're looking at, let's see, Green Bay. All right, let me look and see. All right, so the Bears are running man coverage at the 9th highest rate in the league. And the target against man coverage, Dontavian Wicks gets a decent target share. He's at 28%. But all these guys got pretty high target shares versus man coverage. We're looking at 26% for Christian Watson, 25% for Jaden Reed, 25% for Romeo Doubs, 28% for Dontavian Wicks. And they're all efficient against it, too. We're looking at 0.55 fantasy points per route run for Wicks, about the same for Doubs. Christian Watson at the high point there, 0.76. So Watson, as usual, will be our target here. for Green Bay against the Bears. Last game against the Bears, he had 3.7 DraftKings points. And I don't know if he was in the prior game, he had 24.9. So, division rivals, these guys are going to be all over the place sometimes with these numbers. But Christian Watson definitely in play for us. The Bears are giving up only 14.6 DraftKings points a game to wideouts. But, I think it's a little bit uglier than that for the Bears defense, but they've been getting a lot of turnovers too. So they get a lot of turnovers. They're allowing 18.9 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position for Love's status. And Love can get the ball to Christian Watson. That second game for Watson, don't forget that was primarily with Malik Willis instead of Jordan Love, and Willis had not practiced with Christian Watson that week. Following week though, with Malik Willis, he ended up getting 25. Or wait, how many did he get? Yeah, 25 DraftKings points. So good follow-up week against Baltimore, and then he rested in week 18. But the slot position has had the best success against the Bears, getting 16.3 DraftKings points a game. And that is where, we're going to see Jaden Reed lining up the most. In his last couple games against Chicago, only 7 DraftKings points and 9 DraftKings points. He's been quiet all season, but historically, Jaden Reed has done, pretty well with Jordan Love. And let's check and see if we can get an idea of his history versus the Bears real quick. Let's see. Let's go to Jaden Reed. All right. So versus the Bears, we've seen out of Jaden Reed, nothing this year. Only 3 for 3 for 35, 4 for 4 for 31, 2 for 2 for 48, 2 for 2 for 23 and a touchdown. You have to go back to the 2023 season where he went 4 for 4 with 112 yards, 2 for 5 with 48. So he's never really done well against Chicago, basically, which is interesting because I would have thought that he's had one good game against them where he had over 100 yards. But, I'm not going to write him off, but, just something we got to keep in mind there. Let's see Romeo Doubs versus Chicago. Maybe we can find one of these guys who've been historically done well versus Chicago. Let's go to Romeo Doubs while we're here. First, let me show you the I didn't have this screen shared. You can see these games against Chicago for Jaden Reed: 35, 31, 41, 48, 23 and a touchdown, and 112 yards, and then 48. So he's had that one big 112-yard game. Romeo Doubs, we'll check and see what he's done historically versus Chicago. Doubs, 84 yards and a touchdown in that last game. 0 yards, 17, 0, 26, 27, 55, 25. Very difficult to figure out these Green Bay receivers sometimes. So Doubs has not done anything against them. Neither has Jaden Reed. So it's pretty much been Christian Watson who's had the success against them, and maybe Dontavian Wicks. Maybe we can find something sneaky with Dontavian Wicks versus Chicago Bears historically. All right, Dontavian Wicks, 12 yards, 0 yards, 49 yards, 0 yards, 61 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and then 0 yards. So not much to write home about with Dontavian Wicks either. As far as other matchups, tight ends are getting 12.3 versus the Bears. And on the other side, slot receivers are getting 11.8 DraftKings points a game from the Packers defense. And for the Bears, and this is where I like Caleb Williams a bit, because like listen to these matchups. And this includes some weeks where Micah Parsons was actually still playing. Packers have been giving up 16.6 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. They've been giving up 23.3 to wideouts. That's where we like Burden and we like Odunze. They've been giving up 11.8 to the slot. That'd be Alameda Zaccheaus and potentially Odunze a bit. He was running about 39% of his routes in the slot. Burden 44% in the slot too. So all those guys have been running decent routes in the slot. Let me see if I got I just want to get a more clear picture on that. Going with wide receivers. I'm looking at the Bears. I'm looking at my premium site, so bear with me, guys. All right, so we had 21% on the left slot for Alameda, 1.9 for Rome, 18.7 for Burden. And this guy, Ja'Day Walker, has been a guy that we might want to keep in mind for Showdown. I heard the announcers, they were talking about like how this guy was a buddy of Caleb Williams, and they hang out and everything outside of football. And, we've seen him get targeted for touchdowns on 2 out of the last 3 games. This guy, Ja'Day Walker, got a touchdown. He's at keep him in mind for maybe Showdown. Or if you're looking for a cheap option on this slate, he might be interesting. Zaccheaus, the primary slot receiver, 5 targets last week. I mean, this guy's very hit or miss, but he is in that slot matchup versus Green Bay where they've been vulnerable. So, something to keep in mind there. And a lot of these guys get some pretty decent routes in the slot too. So take that with a grain of salt. All right, so let's go with our build here. We'll go with a popular build first. We'll go with Stafford. People are going to want to put Stafford in there. They're going to want Puka and probably Adams. Let's get our running backs next. Let's go with the onslaught and put Kyron in there too. And then let's go on the other side with maybe Hubbard, because we know that, let's go with Swift. Let's find our defense. Bears D, pretty cheap. Let's go with the Bears D. Tight end. Let's get Higbee in here. And let's say the Rams just stomp the Panthers. So let's get Ted McMillan, because they're going to be wanting to we got him in there already. I forgot to put Adams in though. 4,100. It still leaves us with 4,100 with that onslaught. And that gives us options like Jaden Reed, Alameda Zaccheaus, Dontavian Wicks. Most of those Packers, or a decent amount of those Packers receivers, are options for us. And then, like you can go down and see, what you can get further there. But that's an onslaught build. If we wanted to, maybe reduce it a little bit, and maybe we take out Williams and we put in Josh Jacobs, anticipating that other game to be run heavy. And that leaves us with 4,200, and same spot basically. So you see the options there. So that's a Matthew Stafford build. It kind of builds itself. I would double stack Stafford if I'm using him, or triple stack him. If you want to get different with a 40% owned Matthew Stafford, a triple stack might work. You can include Kyren Williams in that stack because he's going to pass the ball to Kyren Williams probably a decent amount. So, that would be in play. I don't like the matchup for Stafford, but I could definitely see potential for him to, for the Rams to come out aggressive and just try to put the game away as soon as possible. And, maybe that Carolina defense gets caught a little bit off guard or something. So I want to try to go more on this other side. We saw Love do really well against the Bears. So maybe they go with a pass-happy approach. So let's get him in there. Let's get Kyren Williams over here as our kind of pivot. Let's put Corum in there too. Let's say that Corum and Kyren Williams both have decent games over there, and then the rest of the running backs on the slate don't outscore them. And let's go over here to the tight end position and put Higbee in there too, just to give them, give us like an unlikely pairing of these three guys in this lineup. So we got Jordan Love. Let's give him Watson. This way, it doesn't matter how chalky we are at this point. Let's go with let's say the Rams D. We got $7K left per guy at this point. If I wanted to put another Jordan Love partner in here, let's go with Reed, knowing the slot matchup is pretty good. And let's run it back with Luther Burden. Leaves us with 12K still. We can put like Puka in here easily. That leaves a ton of salary on the table. So, like it's really easy to build in this other game. You can basically build whatever you want. I don't know how these other guys are so cheap. So let's put Bird in the flex. Let's see, flex. So 12-7 is what we'd be left with there. Let's say we don't want to double stack Love. Maybe we want to put in Puka and Adams. We could do that easily even over here. There's a lot of mix and matching you can do with this setup. Let's swap out Love for Caleb. And let's say that I don't even mind going this way with these two running backs. It's a perfect pivot off of Stafford. So we go Caleb, Watson. We got Burden. I like going with the Bears double stack better because it seems like with the Rams or with the Packers double stack, it's going to be hard to figure out the two guys to stack with. But if you do Jordan Love, just make sure you're mixing all those guys in, all those receivers in as the double stack. Like Watson and Dubs or Dubs and Reed, or Watson and Reed, maybe even throwing a little bit Dontavian Wicks in there. But we got Caleb with Luther Burden. And we want to get in, maybe Loveland too. So 44. That's going to leave 3K on the table still. But we got Williams to Burden and Loveland. We got Higbee, Corum, and Williams all in there from the Rams, and then we got Nakua in there as well, and we're running it back with Christian Watson. So, pretty good build there. You could even run it back if we wanted to put in Loveland as our flex, and maybe instead of Corum, we wanted to use Josh Jacobs as our run back along with Christian Watson. You could do that too. All sorts of ways that you can go on this slate. And, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the weather. You guys should too. Make sure to sign up over on sportnuggets.com. Take advantage of the OG subscription while it's still around. Going to end it before the playoffs. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help me get to 2,800 subscribers. I only need about, help me get to 2,700. I only need about 40 to get there. So I appreciate the help with that. And, should be a fun slate. Keep an eye on the weather. Keep an eye on sportnuggets.com. And I will see you guys for the next slate. For premium members, I'll be putting out my game script shows at some point, probably on Saturday when we get closer, because it's not worth breaking down until this weather's more clear. But that's going to be available for premium members only. So another reason to sign up. We'll be doing a game script show for the Monday night game. For free viewers, but all the other game scripts are going to be for premium. So make sure to check those out. Those break down the showdown slates. All right, guys. Thanks.